Right now, American corporations spend over $5 billion annually lobbying the government. If you spent $100,000 every single day, it would take about 137 years to spend this amount of money. This money is not used to build anything, employ anyone, but simply to fight each other and block competition. Meanwhile, the average American worker hasn't seen a real wage increase in decades. There is a better way, a system that replaces that warfare with cooperation. It gives workers, business owners, and the government an equal seat at the same table. This is called corporatism. So what exactly is corporatism? Corporatism is an economic system where organized groups of labor, capital, and government collectively negotiate policy rather than compete independently and often collude through corruption. Think of lobbying money. It operates through corporations or organized bodies which represent entire sectors of society at a national bargaining table. Think of all the parts of a human body cooperating together towards a common goal. The system seeks to organize society functionally by what people do, rather than purely by class, wealth, or political party affiliation. So what are the groups involved? You have labor, which are the workers organized into state or independent unions or guilds, which represent their trade or industry. Then there's capital, which involves employer associations and industry groups, which represent the owners of productive property. And finally, there's the state, which coordinates, mediates, and gives legal recognition to agreements between the two sides. So overall, the goal of corporatism is to achieve social harmony by replacing class warfare with class cooperation, to prevent both the exploitation of workers by unchecked capitalism and the chaos of socialism. Both systems reduce people to mere economic units. Corporatism usually calls for a strong national identity, some sort of strong social cohesion that is needed to overcome class conflict, and it aims to align the interests of all productive sectors of society towards a shared national or common good. So what are the roots of corporatism? A lot of it can be found in Pope Leo XIII's encyclical Rerum Novarum, or On the Condition of Labor, which directly inspired early corporatist theory. It rejected both laissez-faire capitalism and Marxian socialism as harmful to human dignity as understood through a spiritual Christian lens. In this document, Leo XIII called for the revival of occupational guilds that existed during the medieval period. If you'd like to learn more about Rerum Novarum, and also an Eastern Orthodox equivalent and perspective, check out my video on that. The 1931 follow-up encyclical Quadragesimo Anno by Pope Pius XI went even further, explicitly calling for a corporatist reorganization of society. Several corporatist governments and movements would use this as a blueprint, such as Dollfuss's Austria, Salazar's Portugal, Fascist Italy, and Jose Antonio in Spain. A good example of a corporatist proposal comes from Oswald Mosley's British Union of Fascists, where you can clearly see his including of the Crown and the Prime Minister, which already existed in Britain, while also organizing society by functionality. Some would call National Socialist Germany an example of corporatism. In addition, China of today is also widely considered as following a form of corporatism following the reforms of Maoist communism by Deng Xiaoping and others. China's state-guided industrial policy has produced the fastest sustained economic growth in recorded history, with the World Bank noting that China has lifted 800 million people out of poverty in under 50 years. China also has numerous social benefits such as universal healthcare, a guaranteed minimum income, and heavily subsidized education. China has become the world's second largest economy and a dominant force in global manufacturing, technology, and infrastructure. China's official trade union, the All China Federation of Trade Unions, is the largest labor organization in the world, with over 300 million members. This means that unions and lobbying groups do not freely compete against each other as they do in the US. There is also the democratic corporatism of modern Europe, also known as neocorporatism or democratic neocorporatism. For example, Austria's social partnership, established in the 1950s, has become the standard for modern democratic corporatism. Austria has historically been recorded among the lowest strike levels in Europe while maintaining high wages and high living standards. In addition, Germany's codetermination law requires workers to hold seats on corporate supervisory boards, giving labor a legally guaranteed voice in major business decisions. The 2024 World Happiness Report placed Finland, Denmark, and Iceland, all countries which operate strong corporatist labor organizations, in the global top 5 happiest countries. So let's look at the two alternatives. You have liberal capitalism, in which corporations and independent unions spend billions to lobby public officials and influence public opinion. All this does is produce gridlock and induce corruption while spending huge amounts in non-productive endeavors. In addition to this, real wages for American workers, as I've pointed out earlier, have remained stagnant for decades despite growth in corporate profits and worker productivity. Without a coordinating framework, interest groups are locked in permanent conflict with each other for limited attention from the government. And then there's Marxist socialism, which has produced shortages and long wait lists despite supposed economic equality, such as in the German Democratic Republic, the Soviet Union, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Removing private property eliminates incentive structures that drive productivity and technological advancement, and in many purely socialist states, you often see a pattern of falling into political repression and economic failings. So you sort of have the idea of the corporatist synthesis, which takes the productivity of capitalism and the social protection of socialism while discarding what makes each destructive. And as I've shown, nations that organize cooperation between labor, capital, and government consistently outperform adversarial systems. It's time for a way beyond false dichotomies, economic parasitism, and class warfare. It's time for a third way, corporatism. Thank you.